Welcome back to Patman Garage. We are jumping into the wiring on the Lethal Performance fuel pump, dual fuel pump setup. It's a return system. I think I've got all the plumbing done for the most part, and we will work on doing the wiring part now, so I'm going to dive into that. So on the control pack, we have a wire that is labeled as fuel pump power, so that's going to be our trigger that turns on our pumps. So this guy needs to get connected to the back of the car somewhere, somehow. And then in the actual back of the car at the moment, we have the relay kit that comes with the dual pumps. So there's 2 relays, 2 20-amp fuse holders, 2 grounds. This is our trigger wire, which will need to get connected up front. And then we have quite lengthy power wires. So we actually have an option with the power wires. We can actually run those all the way up to the front of the car to where all of our stuff connects on the junction block, or we can just run them back here to the battery. I feel like this is probably the easier way to do that. And then since all these relays and stuff are going to probably live in the trunk, more than likely they're going to live in the trunk and be secured in here somewhere, and then we'll just drop this guy down and out and work on connecting that eventually to the tank and sending unit stuff. So it just seems redundant to run this long of a power wire all the way to the front to then just have power right back here. So I'll work on making some sort of little bracket for all these to retain to, and figure out where I want to put my grounds at and all that good stuff. I could actually directly ground to the battery, but probably not the cleanest way to do that. So that's kind of the game plan right here, and I'll show you a little bit more once I get into it. I will screenshot this and put this in the video, but basically what I'm going to do is omit the original factory wiring coming off of the fuel pump, or the driver for the fuel pump, and then where the output of that goes into the inertia switch. I already have this wire run front to back. The inertia switch is in the trunk, so if I pick up this wire in the fender, then I can attach my control module to that, and then on the opposite end in the trunk where I have all my relays and stuff, I'll be able to install on the opposite side of the inertia switch, which will actually also allow me to use the inertia switch, which will give me added functionality for safety. So the module in question is behind this fender on the passenger side. I've already got the connector removed from it, but you can see here, so we're looking for pin number 5, which is dark green with a yellow, which is the wire I've already got pulled aside. So we will cut this, and then we will wire in our control module to this wire, which will then send power all the way to the back of the car to the inertia switch for the fuel pump. So I've got my purple wire run through this main loom it's going to run across the top of the radiator, and I have it exiting over here. I've converted it to a green wire, not that the color really matters, but we're going to convert to a wire and then run down and through the fender to the other. I picked green because it's green over there too. So anyways, we're going to get this one taped back up, and then we'll run that one through and then get it soldered in. All right, so here's my green with the yellow wire that's going to go back to the inertia switch, and then this is going to be my green wire that I have running through the control pack. So I'm going to connect these two up, and I will probably stick a little heat shrink on this guy just to make sure it doesn't do anything goofy, and we'll get this connected. So we're soldered together there. I'll slide my heat shrink back on it and get it heat shrunk down, and then we'll be on to the next part in the trunk. Got my connector reinstalled. This is a 5mm nut or 5mm bolt that helps draw everything together if you are trying to disassemble it like I did. And then we'll probably just stick a little electrical tape or zip tie or something just to help hold that down. Make sure it doesn't go anywhere crazy. we're in good shape there. All right, so right in front of the taillight on the driver's side is our inertia switch, this guy up here. And there are two wires coming off of it. One is green, which is the one we just had up front, and the other one is pink. So all I need to do is cut this little bit of wiring coming off of it, the electrical tape, and then cut the pink wire, and then run my pink wire from the inertia switch across to my trigger on my relays. Oh, also, I mounted the relays in the trunk liner here. I just ran some self-tappers into the body, and there's kind of a double wall right there, so I don't even have to worry about anything leaking. So we're in working order there, and the trunk liner looks like it's going to cover most of that back up pretty easily. So like I said, we're going to connect this blue wire right here to our inertia switch on the other side. All right, so I got my wiring exposed a little bit better, and like I said, we're just going to cut this pink wire right here, and we're going to connect that across to our relays on the other side. And then here's my extension wire that's attached to my blue wires coming for my relays. I'm gonna get this guy soldered in, and we'll get it tucked in everywhere. I did have to pop off this trim panel here, which is just some of these giant Christmas tree clips, fir tree clips, whatever you want to call them. So there's 4 across there, and then the trunk liner just kind of lifts forward. So we're going to get this guy soldered in, and then we will tuck all the harness in out of the way. So that was absolutely worth a little bit of time to do the research, figure out how that inertia switch worked, and where all it was wired into the car. Like I said, that was pretty streamlined overall, considering I didn't have to run any wires front to back, especially multiple wires front to back, but was definitely worth the time and effort to research that, and I'm glad to be able to share this information with you guys as well. So good luck with your builds. We do need to finish up in the trunk and do the power wires to the battery, so I'm going to head back there and do that real quick and show you all that part as well. So coming off of the relay, we have the big power wires. Most of that we're going to just throw away, or save for another project. So we need to connect it somewhere in this vicinity on the battery cable. I can actually go on the downside of that fusible link. Could be a little bit more tucked out of the way. And then, or I'm sorry, the mega fuse. And then the kit also came with these gray wires, which are the fusible links for the system. So they're intended to have you wire these in on the power wires. So we'll have to account for that in our length as well. But we'll get the red wire cut and then solder on the fusible link wires. And really, being this close, it's kind of redundant. But we can stick them on there. But if you're doing a full length, you would definitely want to use the if you're doing full length, you would definitely want to use the fusible link wires, because again, same reason we had the mega fuse on the main power wire. If you had any sort of shorting out on this, it would just continue to pull power unless you had a fuse. So this is acting as the fuse. And yep, so we'll get that installed and wrap up the fuel pump wiring side of this project. Well, I got my fuel pump and fusible links connected to my main mega fuse on the battery cable here. So we will get this dude ready to install here in a short amount of time. And after that, we need to address the wiring that goes actually to the pump itself. So we have a ground and a signal wire for the fuel pump. I'm sorry, the fuel sending unit, the level gauge. So those are supposed to get spliced into the factory harness somewhere on one of those wires. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that, and if I want to do that in the trunk or out of the trunk, and what that looks like. But I will bring y'all along for the ride for that as well. Well, this turned out looking kind of ugly, but I just want to show you mid-process what I did. So I pulled the factory Mach 1 harness out of the floor, and I cut open, pulled the wiring through the grommet, and so this is the remaining of the factory wiring. Stuck it back in the factory connector for now. This will probably just get zip tied out of the way. On the floor grommet, I now have my 2 sending unit wires run through it, which are the original Mach 1 sending unit wires, and I have my 4 wires that are the lethal pumps running out of there. So I just need to connect my yellow to yellow and my black to black with orange outside, and this will be in the loom going down to the tank. So to be able to do this, I had to depin this connector, pull each wire out one by one, push them through the grommet one by one. After doing the exact same thing in reverse on this guy, I had to depin this guy one by one, pull everything out of it so I could get everything out of the grommet. Technically, I probably could have just cut these, but I don't like cutting stuff until I'm completely done with the car and know everything's working right. But this ends up making a lot more work, but in the end of the day, it'll be a nicer product and won't have to drill a hole in the floor or anything goofy there. So yeah, I'm gonna get the yellow and black wires connected, and then I will show you the last minute things before I wrap this up. All right, we're gonna get this thing all loomed back up and taped up, but what I ended up doing is pulling the measuring the length of the original wires from here where the grommet started to where the connector was. I basically matched that on the new loom, and then by the time I soldered the black and yellow, I actually have a little bit of extra wiggle room on this end. So this should be the same factory length as before, and then we'll just keep the extra stuff up here in the trunk out of the way. So this is, like I said, I'm gonna get this loomed back up and then tape up some of the old stuff and get it dropped in the floor, and we'll be ready to rock. Okay, I wanted to show you the final product here. So I've got my grommet back in the floor, got my O3 wiring taped up and secured so it's not going to be rattling around everywhere weird. And this is my excess of my lethal wiring, and then we're just going to hide all that under the trunk carpet. So that turned out pretty sweet, and anytime I get to use factory grommets or factory wiring or factory anything, when you're modifying stuff, it's always a bonus, because it's just way over engineered for what Ford designed this for, is long-term use. And that grommet, they probably spent umpteen $1,000s to research and design that grommet, so makes more sense to use that than like a 35-cent Amazon O-ring. So yeah, like I said, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I appreciate y'all checking out a video, and there's plenty more of this build series. If you have any questions regarding how I did this or something that I may have skipped in the video, feel free to leave me a comment. I do check my comments and try to answer them pretty regularly. So I appreciate y'all, and I will catch you in the next one.